can I be the thing I'm best at,
Yes.
which is a wet blanket?
Uh-oh.
And, maybe make Mets fans mad, but they probably don't like me that much anyway because I'm a Braves fan. It really has nothing to do with the Mets. I'd be saying this if the Royals advance too. It bothers me that the third best team in a division is now at worst the second best team in a league. That bothers me. That troubles me.
Okay, but like they weren't actually the third best team, right?
But they were technically. We took 162 games to sort it out, and they came in third.
Yeah, but they tied. You know,
I'm pretty sure we did this exact thing last year, Scott, and I came to the conclusion that, according to you, we should just crown a champion at the end of the regular season.
Well, there has to be a certain trade-off. I just think we've gone too far. I'm actually not that interested in the playoffs because it just feels cheap to me. Like, I've been paying attention to them to the extent that I think I need to do my job, and that's it. And maybe that reveals a certain lack of sentimentality on my part. I'll accept that if that's the case. But I think we've crossed a threshold where the playoffs have been cheapened because they've watered down the regular season so much. I
mean, this is like the most Braves fan take possible, right? Like, you've spent your entire life being like, regular season's the only thing that matters. Postseason's a crapshoot. Who cares? 15 straight division titles. And of course, you think the playoffs have been cheapened because your team loses in the playoffs every year.
Well, there was 2021. That wasn't that long ago. But I mean, to a certain, you have a point. Like, I've always felt like the playoffs were a crapshoot. It was an idea echoed or maybe presented in Moneyball as well. So it's not like it's unique to me. But the fact that, like, the last 2 years, it's only been 2 years, right, that this has been implemented.
That sounds right.
The best teams have been eliminated so early, and we're the playoffs are continuing with these teams that people weren't even talking about for most of the regular season. It's like they just kind of backed their way into the playoffs and then happened to win a couple games at the right time.
I think, you said a lack of sentimentality on your part. I think it's actually, you are being sentimental because what you are saying is that there should be a significance ascribed to the playoffs that there isn't because of the increased randomness of it. And for me, I think the randomness is a feature of any playoff. Like, it's not just baseball. I think baseball is probably
you like the sentiment of I'm saying that I think the current structure of the playoffs doesn't do a good job of crowning a champion.
Right? No, I agree. I just don't care.
Okay.
Like,
so you enjoy the sentimentality of it. You enjoy the dramatic home runs, and because I see a lot of people saying this has been a great playoffs.
I think we're maybe being sentimental in different ways.
Okay.
Like, I think you are like the sanctity of the game has been harmed by the randomness of the playoffs, and that the best team should win more often. And for me, like, I don't personally care about college basketball. I think it's just an uninteresting product. I don't like watching college basketball. But there's no doubt that the tournament is one of the most fun things in sports because it's chaos. And I think, like, the best team does not win very often in the college basketball tournament by design. And, like, the NBA playoffs, I watch them, but I think relative to other sports, the NBA playoffs are kind of uninteresting because there are so few upsets. There's so little chaos. Like, the NHL playoff. What's the John Boyce tweet? You ever wanted to know what it's like to ride a motorcycle out of a helicopter while high on cocaine? Just watch the NHL playoff overtime. Like, that is I think the feature of it, and I think the randomness is, for me, a good thing as far as the entertainment value of the MLB postseason. But I agree, like, if you want the best team in baseball to stand alone at the top of the mountain, don't care about the playoffs because you're not going to find out. The Dodgers are the best example of this, partially because their pets' heads keep falling off by September every year. But like, they're probably on the level of the best team in baseball over the last 5 years. They have one title to show for it, and it was in 2020 because things always go wrong for them by the playoffs.
And so Frank is saying what I really want is just that we crown a winner at the end of the regular season. And no, that's not really what I want. I mean, the playoffs do add a level of intensity that I think is necessary, but I think qualifying for the playoffs should be more difficult. I think advancing in the playoffs should be more difficult. And it used to be. I think the best playoff format baseball had was the one right before this, where you had the play-in game for the wild card, and then you had a best-of-5 series, a best-of-7 series, and then the World Series. And no buys. Nobody had to sit out for a week. Mm-hmm. I know some people didn't like the one-game playoff. I think of it as more as a play-in game between the two wild card teams. But the idea is it actually emphasized the regular season more because it made it really important that you won your division. And I like that aspect of it. And you didn't win your division. Okay, you leave your season to a coin flip. That's fine. I thought that was the best. And I think this latest playoff format has been a big step back.
I will say, though, this idea that some people have that like having a bye is a disadvantage is just like, go back to like 10th grade math and learn about probabilities. Cause like if you gave every number one seed in baseball the choice of you have to play a 3-game series or you don't play for 4 days, every single one of them, every single time.
Yes.
Even if you grade,
I think that's arguing a separate point. Though.
No.
You can get rusty in baseball.
Yeah, no, I'm going
of
off
course,
on a
you take the bye. Obviously, it's better to advance for free, but you'd rather not be rusty. And the bye requires that somebody's rusty.
Even if you had let's say the team with the bye is at a 40-60 disadvantage in the second round of the playoffs. Let's grant that. That's not the case. I think that would be an exceptionally large gap, but let's grant it. That means you have a 40% chance of moving on to the championship series. If let's call it a coin flip to advance out of the first round, and then a 60% chance to win in the second round. That still comes out to 30%. You'd still rather be the team with the bye every time. And I'm amazed at how many people think having a bye is a disadvantage. It is blowing my mind how few people understand the basic probabilities at play here.
And in a sport where there is more variance than any other, I would say, anything can happen in a best of 5 series, right?
The White Sox swept. Who did they sweep? They swept a playoff team, right?
No, the Angels.
Oh, okay. It was the Angels. Still. That can happen. The worst team ever can win a series against a better team.
I understand what you're saying, Scott, with expanding the playoffs, more teams getting in, but also like the best teams still have to perform in the playoffs. And honestly, the past couple of years, we haven't seen that. I mean, both teams who just made it to the World Series last year were wildcard teams.
The Dodgers wouldn't have been in any better shape if they hadn't had a bye week. Like the Braves last year wouldn't have been like the problem with the Dodgers the last 2 years and the Braves last year wasn't that they had all this time off. The problem was that their pitching staffs completely fell apart in both instances.
But if there was no bye, then nobody could use the bye as an excuse either. Like it just introduces a variable that doesn't need to be there and isn't something baseball's accustomed to.
Well, you know what, Scott? Money talks. We need more teams.
I don't think they're going to go back, but
there's no way.
I don't enjoy the playoffs as much anymore, and I don't have to. That's all.
You certainly don't have to, Scott, but I would implore you to watch them because these Mets games, every single one of them is just filled with drama. And so regardless if you like the Mets or not, what a blah, 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 they're a wild card team. Their games have been very entertaining.
I actually do think you have to, Scott. I'm going to call the police.